Spirit, when we cannot part the weeds of our own traditions and old languages, when the old pathways of prayer feel choked with briars and thorns, would you make a path in the wilderness for us to find you in new ways, new words, new practices, new permissions? Would you meet us in the wilderness and set out a feast? We are hungry and thirsty. That beautiful passage was pruned from a blessing written by Sarah Bessey toward the end of a warm and comforting book she edited titled A Rhythm of Prayer. Make a path in the wilderness, God. I'm convinced that God makes a path for us using the most distinctive yet too often camouflaged cairns to mark the way. When our faith feels choked by long neglected weeds, when our God is obscured by a dense overgrowth of the dreadful thicket known as Christianese, when the heaven on earth we so desperately seek is blocked by the invasive brambles of celebrity pastors and the paralyzing shintangle of institutional abuse, when the path in the wilderness of our faith is hard to find, God marks the way. But we are often too busy chopping at the underbrush with our machetes to look up and notice the faces there in the woods, looking for the path too. Maybe the faces are the way markers. Maybe the path in the wilderness we hope God will show us can be found in the people who are lost in the spiritual woods too. In John's gospel, it says that Jesus told his disciples to love one another as I have loved you. As Jesus' friends, the disciples, were starting to get lost in their own spiritual wilderness, Jesus told them to love one another. This is a moment in the Jesus story when things are about to unfurl for the disciples. One of their own would deny Jesus. Another would betray him. Jesus would be imprisoned, tried, and executed right in front of them. Their entire system of belief and their entire structure of spiritual stability would be rattled and then nearly destroyed. And Jesus gives a simple instruction: love one another. He seems to be saying that if you find yourself lost in a frightening wilderness sometime soon, you might not be able to find me, but you can always turn to one another, and you'll find all you need there. He was blessing the space between them, saying that if they felt lost in the dark woods, they could just turn to one another to find the way out of the frightening wilderness. So, friend, if you cannot part the weeds, if you are entangled in a spiritual undergrowth, if your former faith forest has become overgrown with a rambling, voracious vine, turn to one another. The space between us is blessed. The space between you and I, the space between you and every person you encounter, you'll find all you need right there. We are simply to love one another and trust that we'll find our way through the woods together. My favorite church is the space between people. Now go with God's love and create the church between.